most of us have been to this session a couple of times already, but why don't we just go ahead and start? I'll call off your name, Jessica.
Hey, good morning. This is Jessica Dazar from Loudon Water in Northern Virginia.
Excellent. Thank you. Makeda?
Hi, I'm Makeda Weaver from DC Water and Sewer Authority in DC.
Welcome. Alice?
Hi, Alice Brawley Chesworth, Portland Bureau of Environmental Services.
Great. Thanks. Chris?
Hi, Chris, Metro Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada.
Welcome, Chris. Mark?
Good
Hi,
morning,
Mark.
everyone. Oh,
Oops.
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
That's
Mark
right.
or Mark?
Mark.
Go ahead, Mark.
Mark.
Oh, okay. I'll go ahead. Sorry, I thought you said Mert. Mert, Portland Water Bureau, Portland, Oregon.
Great. Mark?
Mark Poling, Clean Water Services. I'm one of the leads for organizational culture and just sitting in today just to learn what you all are working on. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mark. Thank you for joining us. Dan?
Hi, everybody. I'm Dan Ott with KC Water in Kansas City, Missouri.
Excellent. Thank you, Dan.
And Dan, you know, say you're one of the leads for go ahead.
Yeah, I'm helping and leading with the improvement initiatives on the CIP planning and CIP delivery, where we're looking at business process models and utilities are doing improvement initiatives and case studies as part of the UAIM project. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dan. Ryan?
Hey, Ryan Locicero, Clean Water Services, and we're in Washington County, Oregon.
Great. Thanks for joining, Ryan. Okay, Cello.
Yeah,
Everybody knows who you are, but
yeah, I'm Cello. I'm in charge of distractions and special effects, I think.
You're really good at it, too. Scott?
Hailing from Seattle.
Excellent. Good. Well, hopefully you all welcome. Thank you for coming. Did I catch everybody? Jay, who is JD?
That's Jessica. She just turned off her
Okay,
camera.
I got Jessica already. Okay, great. So welcome everyone. Hopefully you all got my email late last night, 5 o'clock. We sent out our plan for today. This is mostly going to be Cello and Scott setting us up for the workshops that are scheduled, and again, getting us oriented around the products that we're aiming for into next year. So I don't know if anyone has any general announcements for the good of the order, but if not, I will turn it over to Cello.
Okay, thank you, Alice. I'm not trying. I'm sorry, Dawn.
That's okay.
There's a picture of Alice, and it caught my eye, and it just caused my synapses to go like this. Let me just share the. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Give me just a second. It's not opening the share tray. Oh, there it is. Okay. So please let me know if you see a PowerPoint slide there.
Yep. I see it, but it's small. It's like
okay,
less than the full
give me
screen.
just a second. I've got one of those twirly things going.
Oh.
So, and before I can.
While you do that, Cello, I wanted to just show everyone that I have my card with me right here. Or
okay.
access
Thank
card.
you, Mert.
So
Same.
I'm not sure what's going on. It's not letting me make it bigger. As soon as this twirling thing stops, I'll do that. Where we are right now is in this first bubble at the top. Of the overall improvement, this continuous improvement. Okay, is that better?
Yes, getting better.
Sorry. So we're in this upper corner, and the aim for the workshops is going to be to produce the maturity models for workforce and organization. And there were a couple of videos that were sent out maybe a week or 10 days ago. Have people had a chance to? I know there were holidays and Thanksgiving. I'm just trying to get a sense for how many people saw those videos and how many didn't see them without putting anybody on the spot. So, and I don't want to be repetitive today.
Sure, Cello, it's Mert. There were a few of those, I think, but I think I know which one you're talking about, where you go over the maturity model and the assessment model and the link to the business processes a little bit, right?
Yeah, there was one one video in which I explained on this thing on the right, how do we go through, used an example of a business process models. How do we go through assessing system maturity, analyzing where we are currently, designing where we want to be, planning the improvements, implementing improvements, and then monitoring performance and impact. So I went through each of these bubbles when it comes to business processes as an example, so that people get a sense of how it all fits together. So where we are with the workforce and organizational culture, organizational culture is we just started these things, these two topics, and change management. So we're trying to define this map, this first bubble, which gives us a range that says, okay, this is what would be on level 1, this would be on level 2, 3, 4, and 5. So let's say for organizational culture, we defined these different components at the bottom: trust and collaboration, values and purpose, control or authority or power, accountability and attention to results. We used Patrick Lencioni's ideas to kind of structure this and augment it a little bit with these sticky notes that kind of provide examples of characteristics that would be associated with these different steps that come from a different reference. And we've done the same on the workforce, identified components of maturity, and then we will categorize what does it mean to be at 1, at 2, or 3, or 4, or 5, so that once we do an assessment, we have an idea what kind of characteristics are we going to be looking at, and get a sort of composite view where we are is in the overall scheme of things. So that's just defining that range is where we are right now. So I'm going to just stop and see if there are any questions. Mert, you usually have questions. I'm shocked. What's going on?
Oh, yeah, I may usually, but I think I'm good for now, Cello.
Okay.
Thank you for checking, though.
Anybody else?
Cello, one thing that we talked about on a couple of the other calls with the other groups was that if we can define the characteristics associated with 5, in other words, what would we be aspiring to, then it turns out that the opposite of that is like you're not really making any progress on that, or you're not really very mature. And so I think if we get these characteristics defined in terms of what we aspire to for workforce and organizational culture, then, and what those outcomes would look like, then we can work on, what would 1, 2, 3, and 4 look like, as in terms of, level of capability leading towards a 5.
Yeah, well, we started, my original idea was to define the 1 and the 5. Me coming from sort of Eastern European doom and gloom, there is no hope culture, and then Scott stepped in with his humanistic and optimistic approach and said, why don't we just define first what is aspirational? It'll be easier to start the conversation this way, which I think is really good. And the question is, we have three topics. We have workforce organizational culture, and we have change management, and they're all really strongly linked. So when we in 2019 had a workshop and identified all these improvements when it had to do with managing enterprise risk or CIP, and utilities defined what their challenges are, 89% of the challenges had to do with people and processes. So we're trying to get at that. And the reason we're not doing quite yet the maturity model for the organizational culture is because the organizational culture has traditionally been defined as a process.
I'm sorry,
Workforce.
Cello.
Sorry.
Do you mean change management? Because we are doing organizational culture now.
Yeah, I meant, I didn't say change management.
No, you said organizational culture.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Thank you very much. Yeah, the reason that change management is not here is because we want to attack these two things first. And if we look at both the methodology and the definition of change management is typically defined as a process. So what we wanted to do is first nail down these two things which really impact when we want to do change, and then look at a standard model for process maturity and compare how we can adjust it to something that really fits our purposes. So the reason that it's about 6 minutes, maybe 6.5 minute video that shows this methodology applied to business processes. I think if you can find some time and watch the video, it'll maybe be helpful, because you get a sense how we go around this circle. So I'm gonna just stop for a minute and see if there are any questions. Okay.
So how does it relate to the workshops and this team's participation, Cello, which I think is next on Don's list, right?
Yes. So what we would really like is if we do have 3 teams, but it's really so interwoven that it'd be really great if people who are on this team on change management could participate in these workshops, so that we have a holistic view of so when we look at the workforce and the organization, that the way we define the characteristics and where we want to be, so that all these 3 things are compatible in a sense that they are, there's a logical connection between how we define the workforce and organization, and then a process how to do something that is impacted and impacts and interacts with workforce and the organization, so that we have, so it would be very helpful if these workshops were seen not as intended, that the workforce workshop is intended just for the workforce team, but that it's really these 2 workshops are intended for all 3 to cover. I think it would be interesting for people on all 3 topics. We try to not burden people's schedules too much, and when we had discussions about it, people really wanted to have breakout sessions. It would have been a little bit difficult and challenging having concurrent breakout sessions in a virtual environment. And it would also be difficult to find a block of time for so many people that they could make it. So we are using the existing slots for these bi-weekly meetings to address part of the problem. And the breakout sessions are going to be on. So we're going to plan the workshops today. We're planning the workshops, and then during the week of 14, we're going to have basically a breakout session. You can think about it on workforce on Monday, and then breakout session organizational culture on maturity models on Wednesday, and then the two on Thursday. These are all regularly scheduled meetings. On Thursday, they would we would bring back and have report outs from these sessions. Does that make sense?
So Cello, I think the approach makes sense. Just wondering if there's any opportunity for us to learn how the workforce and organization culture discussion have been progressing, because I mean I haven't attended to any of those the streams. I just attended change management, so just to make my decisions which one of the two that I want to join.
Yeah.
If we can learn something about those two.
Yes. We have actually, I'm trying to figure out how to do it without taxing too much of your time. We do, give me just 1 second to bring something up. It'll just take me a second. And I will be there. Why is my computer so slow today? Because 10 people are watching me, that's why.
I mean, maybe just sharing, the minutes from those discussions.
There are videos. There are videos from those discussions, Chris. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So this is what I'm trying to show. This is the root folder for our for a knowledge base, and if you click on the folder for coordination, there is a spreadsheet called Video Store, and I will just click on that to show you what it looks like. I apologize, it takes a while. So if you go, it has pages. So this is the page that says all videos, the worksheet. It just takes a while for it to come up. So if you see, there are, it says what is the research area. So this is risk, and this is people topics, general, business case, CIP, asset management. So we have about 40 videos there. There's also a worksheet for each one of the topics. So for example, if you want to look at workforce, you can click here, either here or down there, and it'll take you to all the videos from all the meetings that have been recorded. The kickoff meetings, part 1 and part 2, which are just videos, and then biweekly status updates, and the same for organizational culture. But this is kind of demanding. This is kind of demanding because it'd be hours of watching things. I'm trying to figure out how to how to present all this information in a summary so that people could make up their mind.
Yeah, actually, Cello, you might tie this with something that you're going to be sending out probably as a doodle poll to find out who's interested in attending each session so you can be invited. And basically as part of that, maybe it's what might you want to look at to help decide, per Chris's question.
Yeah, that's a very good idea. I sent out a doodle poll last night. Did everybody get it?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I didn't see it.
No, yeah, I didn't see it either.
Yeah, so the doodle poll is there to get a list of people who plan to attend. Chris's question was, how do I decide what to attend? If you can just indicate your interest, because we have 108 people right now on the list, And I'm trying to figure out how to tailor the communication so I don't send so they're more targeted. So I don't send, emails to 108 people, because then if they get too many emails, they stop looking at any emails if they have too many. So if I get, so I in that email communication, I ask people to let me know what they're interested in, and 6 or 7 people told me what they're interested in, but not everybody. So that's why I put the doodle poll and said, oh, that would help me. That will help me understand what, how to prepare. So Chris, maybe I can put together over the weekend. What would help you make a decision? You would need a summary or description what's been done to date. What would help you?
I mean, yeah, summary would be helpful, but at the same time, I don't want you to spend too much time on this. I mean, maybe other people are good as is, and I mean, I can look through the video library. I can just skim through, skip over if necessary, and just get a sense of what's going on, right?
Well,
Chris,
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Chris, there are a couple of the videos that actually show both of them side by side, and some sticky notes that have been kind of through use of Mural have basically been facilitated. It's just a start, and the idea is to look at them and identify additional, there you go, things of interest. And so anyway, you can kind of decide, either one of them actually would be good to attend. Some people may even want to attend both of them, but attending one of them is going to help this team. And kind of thinking of Dawn, because, some people are saying, in fact, that this is the most important team. The change team is the most important because we develop the maturity models. It allows you to say, well, where am I as an organization in terms of maturity, identify gaps, and then put together, what are your priorities, and then how are you going to change? Because it's nice to see where you're at, but ultimately, if you want to improve the organization, that it involves having a change process. So, it's really cool that this team exists and is going to be able to deal with that going forward using this information from those other two teams. But, just they're both, pretty similar in a lot of ways in terms of what they're doing. So either one is probably okay. But
okay, and is this graphic available in the same folder or part of a video you mentioned?
No, yeah, the video explains, this is from Mural. This is a page from Mural. So the video explains how we're going to be working with this tool. And so there are two, whiteboards if you'd like. So let me just make this a little bit bigger. So in the previous workshops, conference calls, we asked, this is the one for the organization, as you see, collaboration and trust, command, values, leadership, vision, purpose, control, decision-making, authority, accountability, and stuff like that. So we asked people what is really good, and that was then a green sticker, and what is really not good. And then people were just saying things. So somebody said, well, all decisions are made at the top. So that was not good. So we would use this tool during the workshop to say, okay, where does this belong? So that probably belongs to this box. And we will likely not, the idea now is not to have the red stickers at all, but to have only green stickers, and then developed the ones on the other end, the one. So we're just trying to define the range, and this tool also allows people to put in their own stickers. This is all in the video. There are two videos that I sent out. One describes why we need a maturity model on a business process, on the example of business process, and the other one describes, you know, how we would actually conduct to build this maturity model. And you know, there are these sticky notes, so we would be using either, you know, this kind, you know, this kind of note that, and everybody can do this. And what I can, what I just recently became aware of is that I can actually send a link to these pages to people ahead of time, so that people could get in here and add, you know, some sticky notes. So we would be basically simulating a workshop, in-person workshop, where you have a whiteboard, and it's, you know, kind of traditional thing where you put the sticky notes and you move them around and stuff like that. So that's what we would try to do. And the challenge is getting everybody up to speed on, you know, how the tool works, and kind of avoid, you know, just make it as interactive as possible and as manageable as possible. So I can send out the links to this space so that people can start, you know, putting in their own, you know, their own stickers. And then during the workshop, we'll look at this, and maybe, you know, let me just get rid of this guy. Oh, come on. So anyway, I'll deal with it later. Whenever I try to do something when somebody's watching, it stops working. So we will look at, these are just that came out of you know, the discussions, and people were saying, like, you know, fear of sharing ideas, structure. I just put it randomly somewhere just to show them structure, silence, and voices. All the voices are not heard, you know. Can say, you know, all the different manifestations of the same thing. So maybe, you know, all voices are not heard, structure, silences voices, and fear of sharing ideas. Maybe that's all, you know, maybe they all belong here under trust, and maybe they're all, you know what I mean? Because this was contributed by, you know, people, and this one being punished for speaking out. So you can see that there's a but I didn't want to start deleting and consolidating people's ideas and stickers on my own. I wanted us to do this as a team. Does this make sense?
Yep.
So if people take the time to do this ahead of time as a homework ahead of 2 weeks from now and add stickies, you know, potentially, you know, Cello could do some form of consolidation to make it easier for the group to work with it. But we want to make it real interactive so that people are, you know, sharing their ideas and talking about them and feedback and that kind of thing.
So the one thing, you know, we're trying to figure out how to do all this in a virtual environment with many people from different time zones. In a limited amount of time, we have like an hour for these things. So if the idea is that we try to prepare as much as possible, so we don't spend a lot of time during the workshop, you know, spend 30 minutes explaining how to move the sticky notes, add the sticky notes, and, you know, stuff like that. But to really just have a discussion and say, well, culture of blame, where does this belong? You know, or, you know, clear behavioral expectations that are understood and followed. Where does this belong? So that we can then say, okay, this is a characteristic that's really belongs to maybe here, accountability. You know, and we put it here on the right side as a 5. And ideas are judged on their merit and not on where they come from. Maybe that addresses this, voices are not heard, fear of sharing ideas, structure silence voices. So maybe we can put this as a 5 and get rid of these 4. And then later define all of these 4 maybe as the characteristic of level 1. And then we will define the levels 2, 3, and 4 in between as different, different stages from being, having total fear and having no fear on the other side. So that's sort of the idea behind this.
Yeah, and Cello.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I just want to say, just from a logistics perspective, once we have the bookends, it's okay, maybe at least for some things that I worked on, to skip like a 2 and go to a 3. We don't have to like mince words and slice it so many ways that there is a, verbiage for every rating. We could try, and it works. If it works, great. But just for sake of speed, we can probably just, have a midpoint and maybe bookends too, even for some of the items.
Yeah, our intention was not really to look at 2, 3, and 4 at all. And then the question was really to look at 1 and 5, or to only look at 5. And we can, I can go either way. There also, we don't need to have, 50 characteristics, because we want to have something that we can also sort of, because our next step in the is going to be analyze as is system state. How are we doing? Where are we? Are we on 1 or 2 or 3? So if we need to define these characteristics in such a way that we can actually measure and have some assessment method that says, okay, how do I find out where I am?
Yeah.
Cello, I have one idea. I'm not sure if the timing is right for this, but I'm going to just throw it out there. When we did our reorganization and our transition project, we tapped into a body of change management work that I think was prepared by the state of California. It might have been the transportation department or something like that. Alice, we can look into it and ask Maya. But anyway, it's a huge library of open source tools for change management. And one of the things that we did was a readiness survey. And there was a lot of content around this readiness. And I don't know, I just had this thought that we could take some of that existing material that I think would be pretty easy to get our fingers on and translate readiness into some version of maturity as a starting point. And then be thinking about, I think the challenge for me is, like, I understand the concepts of change management more or less, and understand the steps of putting a roadmap together to get from point A to point B, where you are now to where you want to be. But I think with the culture and the workforce development, it's a little squishier than a new business process to deliver CIP, or, something that is, more like the nuts and bolts of a chain of some transaction, versus how we treat each other and how we show up in the workplace and what our mindset is, and these softer things. And so I don't know, I'm just going to put it on the table. Maybe in addition to asking participants to review this workspace that you've set up for us, we could also even begin to draft kind of a starting point, and then ask people to modify or weigh in based on their experiences or what we know about the other two teams. I don't know. I just put
that's a really excellent excellent suggestion, and that's really excellent suggestion, because at the end of the day, we want to make things that are actionable, so that people who are participating can go, after a few months, can go to their boss or whatever and say, this is why it was worthwhile. We're actually able to make some changes, make some improvements and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So I have some ideas. I'd love to hear other ideas. What I've done is, and this could be really helped with other materials, I posted in, this is looking at our folders, UAM folders, and it's accessible to Microsoft Teams as well, where if you look add, let me just see. This spreadsheet is kind of like an index of things. So all of these things come from, you know, these are the references that I was aware of. The stuff that you mentioned from state of California, I was not aware of it. I'd be very keen to, you know, to look into it. We talked about ADCAR, which, you know, there's also, I don't know what's happening with my computer, why this thing is not coming up. But in this spreadsheet, there's it tells you what each one of these what each one of these references are. So, for example, this is Association of Change Management Professionals, Standard Change Management, you know, PDF document and stuff like that. This is Team Effectiveness Questionnaire from some others. So it would be, I'd be delighted to get more sources where we could find stuff that would help guide us.
Yeah, and Dawn, actually doing that at the front end of a change management process, and maybe if she's on the line still, maybe was that part of what you might have done, Makeda, is some change readiness as part of your you know, kind of change process and ADCAR process?
Yes, we do assessments and everything with different folks and different stakeholders at different levels. Yep, and the ProSci assessments, just to sort of get a pulse on where everybody is.
And I just put a document, I linked a document in the chat for the California Organizational Change Management Framework. So I think that's what Dawn was talking about.
Yeah, thank you, Alice.
Fantastic.
Okay, so these are the, you know, we could definitely add, these are the things that we, you know, have kind of collected, you know, so far.
Well, I think the main point for me today was, as I heard you talk about this, I was just thinking, I was going through my kind of Rolodex of existing information and just thinking to translate the idea of readiness to maturity. I don't know that it'll be exactly the right fit, but if we could find that readiness material as a starting point, that it would help create the scales, or at least understand the terms that you use at the high end and the low end of because I'm pretty sure the readiness was on a scale 5.
I think that yeah, a lot of them are, and that would be very useful. And actually, perhaps the information from that would be very useful, not just for change management, but also for workforce and organization side as well. And we sort of knew at the start, when we look at these things, you use the word squishy. It is a little bit more difficult for, you know, people who, you know, some of us have sort of engineering or science backgrounds and things like that. It's a little bit, it takes a little bit of a leap to start dealing with things that are, you know, a little bit more complex. And the ADCAR that Makeda also talked about is useful in a sense that it breaks down, you know, it gives you sort of steps and guides you through the process, if you will, of change and the readiness, how we weave it in, where we put it. I'm totally open to structuring it, you know, collaboratively within this team, and so that it incorporates everybody's ideas.
Okay.
One question that'd be interesting to get your feedback is that, you know, there's a relatively short amount of time in those 2 workshops, and let's just say people go in and we look at what people have added, and there are 100 stickies. Well, would it be more useful for, you know, some consolidation of that information to occur ahead of the workshop, or and then work with it and add still more stickies, to it, or people thinking that they want to participate in that consolidation process. Because, I'm just thinking about practical considerations of achieving some outcomes by the end of the workshops, and just interested to hear what your feedback on that might be.
Makeda, what are your thoughts? I mean, you showed a fairly well-defined change management process that you have implemented, with EDCAR and stuff like that. Do you have any ideas on how to, organize? I mean, how to structure these three things: the workforce organization and the change management, so that we can weave it into this continuous improvement methodology?
I've been on mute. So I think we said the concurrent breakouts were sort of a no-go, just because of the technology, and I 100% get that. So how do you guys feel about sort of doing one after the other, or?
Yes, let me just show how. I don't know what's going on with my computer. Let me just show where I have that. The way we would do it is that on a Monday, the 14th, we would just have essentially a breakout session just on workforce. Then on Wednesday, during our regularly scheduled meeting for change management, we would have an organizational culture maturity models and discussion and try to, construct that thing. And then on the Thursday, we would bring the two groups together and have report outs and sort of workshop on integration, a discussion and so forth. So this way we would be using existing time slots that, people, we were trying to figure out how to avoid looking for a new time slot that would fit, so many people. It's really difficult to schedule. And also it would make it simpler. There's not the fact that the breakout sessions on the 14th and 16th are not concurrent. I don't think it's a breakout session that if they're concurrent, there's absolutely no interaction between the two groups anyway. Mm-hmm. So the fact that they don't happen on the same day shouldn't, impact us tremendously. And the other benefit is that if they're not concurrent, somebody could actually, or a number of people could attend both of them. Right. They wouldn't be limited just to one. And obviously to have just 3 1-hour slots is very tight. And maybe it's too ambitious to have the report outs on that Thursday. Maybe we should have some time to digest the information from the 2 breakout sessions before we're ready for the report outs on the 17th. But you know what happens the week after this one? Right. The week after this it's Christmas, and then it's New Year's, and then we're like, A
couple observations would be that, back to Chris's original question, if you were going to attend one session, doing the third session, you'd get at least what were the results of the 2 that might relate to change management. I mean, you'd be able to see them together if you were just going to attend one of the 3. So you'd get a report out. And then another observation is that in the limited time that we have on those report outs on that last time, it's not going to be the final result of consolidation of all this and integration and everything, but maybe it's just hearing what happened in the 2 sessions and getting some feedback on that. And then there's going to be time over the holidays to prepare for and get people ready for maybe either another session or where they can see that, or a video that they can watch and react to, or is going to help set the stage for what happens next year. Just an observation.
Yeah,
Probably worth having it's probably worth having, even if it's not the end result or the final say or anything, but just the report out of, well, what happened in this session, what happened in that session, what were the observations, what were the learnings, and the challenges going forward, that kind of thing.
I 100% agree, Scott. Even if that debrief or the report out is sort of the beginning of more than one conversation, which it might be, that I still think it's valuable. Use of the time.
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, we're attacking huge issues, and the idea that we're gonna, in a week with 3 sessions, we're gonna solve all this stuff is probably, a little bit optimistic. So that's what our current plan is, and we were, our goal for today was to share this, to get your ideas, your thoughts, and to kind of figure out how to go forward.
There were some comments in the chat that you might want to look at, Cello.
Okay, I cannot. It's difficult for me to. I have a logistics thing with.
So that's okay. So Mert basically commented that he saw the Doodle poll email, and it wasn't a Doodle poll notification. It was from Cello's email. So that was a comment that he had. And I think the others are more just trying to figure out what they should go to. And then Alice provided a link to the state of California.
Yeah, that'd be very helpful. The other thing that we had in those files that I'm gonna resist pulling them in here, in those folders, is places where individual organizations could post their materials and say, well, this is what we're doing. So it sounds like something that you were doing, Don, are really could be very interesting to others. And what Makeda showed from DC Water, I'm sure would be really interesting to you guys. And so the idea was that in addition to looking at references, which we have to, that we would also, that utilities also share some of the specific things that they've been doing and working on and stuff like that.
If we have a few minutes, I want to just add something.
Okay.
So I would say two things. One, to Scott, earlier comment on maybe consolidating some of those stickies. I would say, I think anybody who feels pretty confident, anybody that visits the mural and feels pretty confident that, 2 stickies are pretty much, covering the same trait or concept, I think it's okay to maybe delete one or consolidate them. I think anybody among us can do that. If we are not quite sure, but they are talking about similar things, maybe we can just put them next to each other for folks to be able to think about during the call. And one other thing that I think that will help me a lot, and I will do this, and maybe others may benefit from it, is that we are kind of doing the workforce before the org culture, but I want to go back to the org culture mural and kind of review and refresh my mind on the traits of traits we are looking for in a utility organization, the ones that we were going to judge against, 1 to 5, and then some of the workforce traits will contribute towards those as well. So I want to keep that in mind as I do the workforce meeting first, and just sort of stimulate my mind a little bit on where to focus, what the links are more concretely in my mind. And then sort of judge the criteria for the 1 through 5 with that in mind for workforce, with the org structure, org culture traits in mind. Anyway, so that was my point. Thanks.
Good comments. Cello, you might want to just give an overall, I mean, we have not too much time, but maybe the way that you would characterize the relationship between organizational culture and workforce, because you have a good context of thinking on that.
Yes, Scott is making me work hard. I got a computer issue going on with like you've seen it. It doesn't bring up files, so I can't bring that up. There is a federal government document, I think, is the one that you're referring to.
Yeah.
Office of Personnel Management has a very interesting content, and there is a model. One of the references that they cite in their documentation was a document from Rutgers and University, and it has a model that really makes a lot of sense, and it connects the workforce. Mert, maybe you can mute a little bit.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, thanks. And it gives the best model I've seen so far. I haven't seen them all, obviously, of workforce, I mean, organization on one side, workforce on the other side, and how they match together. And the nice thing about it is also is that they have an assessment methodology that's baked in. So they have an assessment methodology that's paired up with it. And the other thing is that they've used this for a few years on like 1.5 million federal employees. So it's something that's been kind of, and we wouldn't need to, maybe not all of those would apply to us, but some of them. So it's very interesting. So it, personally, I'm struggling with several competing objectives. One is to make this as interactive and people, as collaborative as possible, which especially in, if we had in 2019, we had a full week workshop at Clean Water Services in person. So if we get one of those, it'll be a lot easier to get all this done collaboratively. But with these, bi-weekly 1-hour meetings, it's a little bit tougher. So I don't want to be too prescriptive. I'm admittedly not an expert in all of this. I'm trying to, how do we strike the right balance is a bit of a struggle for me.
Yeah, McKade is wondering if she could have a link to that.
Absolutely. I will send the link to everybody. It is already posted to our knowledge base. I just can't show it right now, but I'll send it to everybody, the link right after this.
And I tend to oversimplify, and then Cello fills in the real the real detail. But one way of thinking about it is that that's expressed here is that the organizational culture has to do with ultimately what are the outcomes that you're trying to achieve for your organization overall in terms of some characteristics, and what is the context. And then almost like the what and the why, and then the workforce is more how do you go, implement that through your workforce, and that's sort of expressed in this version. And of course, the federal government may have some great thoughts, and they may do all these surveys, but the federal government isn't the end all, as we know, in terms of, effective organizations either. So, but it's a good, it's a good context. So I think that the idea is that are there characteristics that can be added in the form of stickies that would fit with organizational culture or would fit with workforce and fit into those categories, so we can kind of take these disparate or these different models that are out there, and we're learning about new ones every week, and there's tons, but can we incorporate some attributes of those in what we're doing? And Dawn, you're probably getting nervous because we're running out of time here too.
Yeah, 8:26. I was just going to say, I don't know, Cello, we didn't get a chance to talk about this, but do you want any volunteers to work with you to prepare for the workshop? Would that be helpful?
Absolutely, absolutely.
You know,
Check is in the mail, just like we discussed.
And I'm assuming that, you know, this early morning time, well, it's early for some of us, not for everyone. We probably look at like the beginning of the day of the end of the day across time zones, but you know, we don't have a lot of time to prepare. But if you maybe want to send out a meeting invite and people can adjust their calendars or join as needed. Or if you want to go through the process of getting a doodle poll so that the people who can volunteer can actually make it, I'm happy to help with that. So I don't know, maybe if I can get a sense right now of who would be interested and if anyone is even interested in helping prepare for this meeting.
Makeda, please. Thank you. Thank you.
Mert raised his hand. We got 2. I think that's pretty good.
I'm slightly hesitant, but I'm willing to give it a little time. The Infor implementation is taking so much of my time, though. So yeah.
Well, and maybe between Alice and I, I'll talk to Alice offline and we'll see if one of us can cover the base. So that's at least a little seed of some resources that can help at least test some ideas so that when we do get together next time, it is we're really targeted on getting the feedback we need from you and making sure that this is going to be useful for other people who look at it.
This I really appreciate this, Dawn. I really appreciate it. It's exactly what we needed. So
okay.
And we want to be sensitive to people's time, but I'm really delighted that you proposed this at the end. That's the best way this meeting could end.
Okay, so Cello, if you could perhaps email me with some times that you're available for a work session with this smaller group, and I can ask Tanya to do a quick doodle poll today. So we'll try to get it. We'll try to get it scheduled today.
Okay, that sounds great. I'll send you this about an hour from now.
Okay, that sounds great. All right, everyone. Well, it was really good to see you. Sorry, feeling a little discombobulated being in the office today, but it's still good to see you. And I look forward to our next meeting. And I really hope that we're going to sink our teeth into the overall structure of this and start to see something that we're going to feel good about investing in. So really, thank you.